Hi y'all, in this tutorial I'm going to be showing you how to make a triple brick stitch fringed earring. Very similar to the first two videos, only in that each row is going to be a column of 3 beads instead of 1 or 2. So we start out the base row with 3 beads per column, and then it'll build up on 3 beads, just like that. And at the top, I decided to do something a little different from the other two to give you a variety of options and choices and hopefully stimulate some sort of creativity and do something that you don't normally see in your own design. So you start out with all your colors. This earring has 5 different colors. You can just follow the pattern and not even mess with different colors, or you can change it up, or you can do exactly what I did. Or you can follow my color pattern, but different palette. So I carry them in these things because it's very convenient. I've tried all different things, and much to my dismay, the first thing I ever tried was the worst thing I ever tried. This is the best thing. I like them better than the long tubes that they come in because sometimes the tops on those things they're not really reliable. Let's just put it that way. These are more reliable, and you can travel with them and you can interchange them. Said that right. You can choose all the colors that you want, screw them all together, and then put them in a bag with the rest of your things and pretty much take them wherever without taking your entire bead collection or carrying around a bunch of tubes that are bulky and might come apart anyway. So I'm using a size 10 bead. Here I'm using ponies. I like to use tulips, but they're a little expensive as I've mentioned before, so ponies are just fine. Here's my gel spun polyethylene beading thread, and this is my little trick I've also shown in social media where I pinch the tip to flatten it so that it goes into the beading hole pretty quickly and easily without any problems. So for our foundation, we're going to pick up 6 of the main color. 6 because we're technically starting out with 2 columns and then we're working beyond. So the first 3 will be your first column, and that's where the little tail is. And then the second column will be the second 3. So if you start in sort of a loop like that, as I've shown in the previous videos, and pull it all the way through and leave yourself a good tail. I'm a cheap broad, so I keep that tail real short because in my mind, after time goes by and after so many earrings I make, I feel like I'll add all that up and I would have had a complete earring. So I try to be very conservative in how much of a tail I leave, but you know, I don't really think it's a big deal. So there you have it. And hopefully you have tried the first 2 types of earrings so you could build upon this. I like the triple and the double because you just cover a lot of area much quicker. And it gives you a little more to work with if you're trying to come up with different little designs within your brick stitch pattern. Works out. So here we've got 3, and the earring, when you start out with 5 columns of green, and then it switches to 5 columns of yellow, and then 3 columns of green. We have 2 different yellows and 2 different greens in this pattern. So the darker green is my primary green. So I just need to do 2 more columns here. Speed it up a little bit so you don't have to sit through all this. One thing I've noticed is when I get the colors that I want in seed beads, some of them are a little bit bigger than others. Like these greens are definitely bigger than the yellows. It's just the way it is. There's not much you can do about it if you're not using delicas. And you'll see right here, kind of the size difference. There's a little gap. Hold on. There we go. So you can see the size difference. So I don't want you to freak out if you ever run into this problem when you're doing weaving, because as you can see, it kind of straightens it out. You'll see variations, but it kind of gives that cool, organic, I don't know, I think it's kind of endearing. Just as long as you're consistent with your tension and how you're stitching them together, or weaving them together, that'll make up for a lot of wonkiness in your materials. So here we have 5. So I'm going to switch back to the green beads now to finish our foundation row. And I'm going to make a point to slow it a bit down at the beginning of every row, just so that really hits home for you, because it's a little bit tricky sometimes, and when you're first learning, it's easy to forget how to start out that next row. So here we are. Looks the same. We're on the right track. So now we're going to pick up 6 beads, because we're working 2 columns, remember? So there's the first column, and here's a second column. So you double however many beads are in a column at the beginning of every row, because you're technically making 2 columns. And then for the rest of the row, you work 1 column each. So here we go. You go back into that column. Careful not to work under the part of the thread you just worked around, if that makes sense. I've done that before, not paying attention. And I go to loop it, and then I just stick the needle right back under it, and then they all come out. So there we go. So to keep that from being too much of a gap, you come back up around. There we go. And then here's where the colors start to change if you're working the color chart or color pattern palette. So now here you grab 2 green beads and 1 yellow, and I'll show you. Sometimes you might be tempted to grab the yellow first and then the 2 green, but then it'll be all wonky. So really the color starts, or wherever the thread's coming out, that's where you gauge your color of beads. So here we have 2 yellows at the end now, because we're working our little orb shape. In there. And then at this point, you'll just kind of mirror the orb. So you got your green and your 2 yellow, and then 2 greens and a yellow will be the next column. And then for the rest, you'll just work green all the way across. And here we go at the start of a new row. So sometimes your beads will get a little loose at the very, very beginning. You'll feel gaps. So you can just pull on either end of the threads like I just did to kind of tighten everything up. So see how much area we're already covering? It's kind of amazing. So on the next row, we're going to work the first 7 columns in green. So you got your third, your 6 beads, the first 3 and the second 3 for your 2 columns you're starting. I always wondered maybe I should have done the white here, but whatever. So, and it doesn't matter. I remember I did this a couple of times when I first started and I freaked out. It doesn't matter which way you go, front or back, but I say work towards yourself, not away. So this is kind of like maybe how I'd work it if I was right-handed, I guess. I don't know. Either way, it works. Just do whatever's comfortable for you and do your best to be consistent, because once that muscle memory kicks in, then you're not even going to think about it. But see, it worked. So if I went through the back or the front on the first couple of columns and then switched it up on the next one, it's going to still weave the same way. As long as you're getting under that little bit of thread there, then it's not going to be a problem. Oh, snafu. Yoink. So again, I'm doing this as though you've already at least skimmed through the first and second tutorials. So if you haven't, I highly suggest, because I'm sure there may be a little nugget or two of wisdom unique to each video. So now we're going to work the little pattern with the white. So I've got 4 white beads. So we're going to work green, white, green. There we go. Oops, sorry. And then you're going to work that all the way to the end. And that should be 4 columns. And this was where I was saying, oh, maybe I should have put these little white guys on the other side. And you can do that, please. By all means, change things up. Oops. So there, pull that tight. When you first start, you will have the desire to pull your stitches really, really, really tight. That's normal. But try to loosen up just a bit so you don't make your piece, your woven portion, curve or curl. And as you get comfortable with it, you'll start working your pieces a little looser, a little more loosely. Loose, more loose. It's the same with crochet, it's the same with knitting that I found. Weaving. Once you get comfortable with it, you feel that sweet spot where it's not too tight and it's not too loose. Okay, so we're going to be working the colors here again, and they're going to be slightly different. So before it was green, white, green, now it's going to be white, green, white. And you'll work that for 3 columns. And we are now on row 4. So here we go, we have our white, green, white, and that is the first column. So the second column will be white, green, white. Avoid the urge to go white, green, white, green, white. So altogether it'll be white, green, white, white, green, white. There we go. Back through there. And I've not done this. I've kind of skipped this part and worked it and tried to do a shortcut just to see if it made a difference, and guys, it makes a difference. For real though. Okay, so the next one, white, green, white, and then for the next column it'll be white, green, green. Green, green. Here we go. Under the little loop-de-loop. And over the loop-de-loop. Here we go. The last little doodaddy of white. And then the rest will be green. All the way through to the end of this row and the entirety of the next row. So yeah, that's a lot of progress in 4 rows. So I love this. Okay. And then all the way across, totally green. You don't even have to think about it. So go ahead and show this one more time. I'm gonna get a little bit closer. Just like the double and the single. The only difference is you're adding another bead. That's it. I will say when you're weaving in all the ends in a double and a triple, it's much easier than the single. I don't enjoy weaving ends on the single break stitch pattern. Not my favorite. Okay, so here's the little thingamadoo that I did that's different. So you start out your first one as you would a row, same. And then I'm gonna work back through that first column. And I'm gonna go down another row just to, I don't like, because I'm gonna work in a zigzag all across that 4th row so that I don't expose any more of my thread than I have to. When I'm using thread that's pretty different in color from the beads, like the white thread is gonna kind of show a contrast against the green. I don't want to strengthen that. So that's why I went down a bit to weave that in, so you won't see another strand of extra white thread along the top of that 5th row, if you can see. And in here, it kind of stiffens up the piece, and anything you can do to prevent your whiter pieces from curling is great. I'd rather weave in a bunch than put any sort of lacquer or poly coating. So there we're going to work all the way up, and then on the other side we're going to work it like we're beginning a row. So you'll grab 6 green beads and you'll work it like the beginning of a row. These are always fun for me to do. I really like this style. It's not for everyone. So we're going to come down through there like we always do. Get it nice and tight, but not too tight. So now I'm going to work the colors for the loop or arch as follows: 3 green, 3 mustard, 4 light green, 3 mustard, 3 green. So once you get to those 2 light greens, you just mirror it. So here we go, 3 green. Use this guy. I love this guy because we're getting our new colors out. This happens often because my children like to make my life difficult. 3 mustard, 3 light green. Oh, I'm sorry, 4 light green, 4 light green. And then we're going back to the 3 mustard. See? Doink. and then 3 dark green. And then I'm gonna work into the same, like the mirrored columns. So it's coming out of that second column, so I'm gonna work into the second column on the other side. And then I'm gonna go down. Whoop. Instead of coming right up that first one, I'm going to go down 1 row and then come back up, because I feel like it's more, it fortifies it better. It provides more stability. And come all the way back up. So it's the first row and then second row. Or the 4th, 5th, whatever. You get what I'm saying. All right. See, so now we're coming out of that first column. We're going to go straight back up through the arch to pass through it and strengthen it. And then when we come out of there, we're going to go in through that first column that we worked. And then I went down through that 5th row, again for fortification purposes. Just in my mind, that is safer and sturdier. So here, if you want, you can just start zigzagging across and weave that end in. Or you can go back up and do the same and then weave it in. Me, I like insurance. So I'm going to go back up one more time. And that way when I walk away from it, I'll feel very confident that that thing ain't coming apart. There we go. And then I will start weaving in. There's a weird little gap here. I don't know why it's there, but I'm gonna weave in right there to kind of tighten it up. And with these seed beads that are very, their sizes are very, I mean, they're all size 11, but sometimes their shapes can be a little inconsistent. So they sort of create this little terrain of wonkiness. And here I'm going to speed up through weaving in the ends because I covered that quite thoroughly in my other 2 video tutorials. Once you see me do it a few times, after like 3 or 4 columns, you pretty much get it. And here's where your scissors are really great if they're sharp, because dull scissors will not cut through that polyethylene thread very well. And if you get really close, you don't have to burn the end. And this is my all-purpose thread that I like to use for the fringe exclusively. This is a poly cotton blend, but sometimes you'll see 100% polyester or 100% mercerized cotton. Depending on what color I'm getting and where I'm getting it, they all vary. But they're all good. And I feel like if it's strong enough to hold my fabric together when I'm sewing, and it's only being sewn with 2 threads technically, this fringe is doubled in the thread, and I work through it, I pass through it twice. So you have a total of 4 strands of this thread per strand of beads. That makes sense. So here I have my 2 strands, and be sure to leave a little tail so you can weave in the end later. And so since I worked this side, I like to flip it and work the other side. There's always going to be one side of the earring that you're going to be working that's going to be facing you. So sometimes your thread might poke through, sometimes not. Mine does a little tiny bit if I work it too loosely, but I've never had any complaints, and I don't know, looked fine to me. So here is where the color chart will really help you. Sometimes I just refer to the earring that's in front of my face in the event that I miss a bead or add a bead. If you're working a very intricate color pattern, then yeah, you're gonna want to make sure you double check and triple check your work. So now that I have this guy on, and I've got technically my 2 strands of thread, you skip that first bead at the end, work around it, and then up through, back through all of those beads you just strung on. And that's where these guys will come in hand, but I just wanted to show you what it looks like with this guy first. And so you see my 4 strands are going through, working all the way up. And if I were to condition my fringe thread, it wouldn't be a terrible thing as far as, I guess, the lifespan of it. But I like my fringe to move a little more freely, and the wax on the threads just kind of stiffens it and gives it sort of a weird feel to me. It's like, yeah, it's just stiff. I don't like it. It's not my thing. Plus, I like to use water to relax the thread of my fringe. This will happen even if you do condition your threads, so fuck what you heard. And if you work a little slowly, then you'll avoid that for the most part. So yeah, this is where I'll follow my color chart. If I'm working the first one, if I'm working my second earring, sometimes I'll just do this. I'll go and be like, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, at the earring that's like right in front of me. And here are 2 different color options. Please feel free to just have fun with this. I make this in a lot of different palettes, and I always get compliments on this design, so if you decide to replicate it, I love that story. This one's a little different because I brought a different color down from the little orb, whereas in the other 2 I didn't. It's just like this little floating orb by itself. So here, I normally would leave this open in case I screw up or I want to add some beads or take some away. But for the sake of this tutorial, I'm just going to go ahead and show you to weave it in. If you're 100% confident that you're not going to need to undo that part for any reason, go ahead and weave it in like this with a single tiny eye needle, the beading needle, because it goes through a lot easier. I do most of my weaving in with a big eye needle, but at this point when you have to start a new piece of thread, weave in as much as you can with that little singular guy. So it looks good. Just make sure, and I fuss a lot over my fringe. I like to make sure everything is nice and even, that the tension is even throughout each strand of beads. I don't like it when one is a little more, like, a little tighter than the others. It just looks weird. So I'm gonna leave this first end open for a safety measure. And then I'm gonna switch over to these long big eye needles to show you guys how epic and amazing they are. If you know the misery of working fringe, especially in long earrings, you'll know that these things change everything. They just really do. Change your life. So I string it the way I did the regular size 10 beading needle with my 2 long strands of thread all the way down. I'm really not selling it here, guys. Just be patient. I promise. Patient as in with the thread, or the fringe thread, or the fringe part, or the, well, yes, all of that. Yeah, right there. So you pull, right? Just kind of pull, 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 pull. Once it goes through almost every row that you established, it's gonna, that woven bit is gonna hold that end in place pretty well. It won't slide through very easily. So if you accidentally drop it or tug at it, or your thread gets caught while you're working your fringe, it shouldn't go anywhere. But if you work the other way, whew, you might lose your beads. So here we do the same, and this is the beauty of the long big eye needle. All the way up through that strand. Glorious. Oh my God. Whew. It almost brought me to tears the first time I tried. Like, most people who make earrings like this, they don't really favor the fringe part. I'm sure there are some lone rangers out there who thoroughly enjoy fringe, although with these needles I actually enjoy fringe now, or more than I did. The weaving part is fun. The fringe portion can be tedious, as you see right there, which just happened, which is why I cut it out. This is very satisfying. I might make a video of just that one motion over and over again. It makes it go so much faster. And look how easy it is to pick up the beads. You can put so many on at once. I just feel like if you reduce the number of repeated movements and motions in your work, it becomes more efficient. The whole work smarter, not harder thing. That was like beat into my head when I worked in a kitchen as a cook under chefs that were psycho, but wonderful. But I feel like if you work in a professional kitchen, there has to be some sort of element of you that's just completely psychotic. And then here we go again. Ooh, yeah. Oh my God. So happy. Oh God. Eesh. Okay, nobody saw that. Good. So now we're gonna weave in these guys. But first, I'm gonna weave in the live end that I have right now, meaning, at least in my speak, my little live end is the one that has we'll call it the active end, the one with the needle on it, because technically those other ends are live ends as well. And if I'm making up my own vocabulary for all of this here, I apologize in advance. So again, I'm speeding up the weaving in process because it is very redundant. I don't enjoy doing it, so I can't imagine anybody would enjoy watching it. So yeah, see, if you just work a little slowly, it'll prevent most of the tangling. And something weird that I do, but I notice actually kind of helps with when my thread tangles like that, I like to put oil on my hands, like nothing crazy, just like an essential oil or like baby oil, just a little tiny bit. And then when I thread the needle and I run my fingers over the thread a few times, it just kind of makes it happier. It stays in place. There we go. And so here are the big eye needles, the shorter ones that I use for weaving in the ends. And I'm able to demonstrate a little better in this video than I could in the other ones of just how versatile these guys are. But they get pretty beat up. But you know, that's why they sell multiple needles in a package, because it just happens. So as you can see already, I've got a nice little curve, a little bow to that needle. That way I can keep the thread on one end and sort of navigate. Here we go as another example. It's completely bent, but I'm able to work that. So if I can't get in that way, I can just flip it and reverse it and work your needle through the columns either end of a big eye needle, because you can just slide it down and pull the thread that way. But when you have to work it this way, sometimes you gotta grab your pliers and gently pull it through. So get your forefinger and your thumb and firmly hold the beads and then slowly tug at the needle to pull it free. Do the same thing here, and you can really weave in a very, very short end. Sometimes I really milk the ends on fringe. Sometimes I get just a little bit enough to weave in. It's like, God, you don't want to start a new thread, because then that's 2 more ends to weave in. You can milk that one last strand. Do it with the big eye needles, the short big eye needles. And there you go. There's that tension in that last little guy. When you go to weave in any end, the strand at that end is always going to get pulled on more than any other strand in the fringe. So be very mindful of that when you start weaving. And that's the last little guy, the gel spun, where we started. And if you don't get it all, that's where you use the lighter. Just burn the end after you've burned all those shitty love letters that you got from that one jerk. Just lying. And there you have it. So now I'm gonna get my fancy gold-filled ear wire because I like it. I like the gold with these colors, girl. Shoot. Doink. Okay, the moment of truth. This is kind of my favorite part. Makes me feel like I saw something through to the end. So the front piece, the one you want facing out, the smooth side goes on the curved smooth side of the ear wire. This is how I remember. So the pokey side matches the back side where the thread might poke out. And then the soft smooth side matches the curved smooth side of the ear wire. Of course, if you're using any other kind of ear wire with a completely different shape, none of this applies. But we're not doing that. Yes. Y'all, it's been real. It's been real. And there you have it. Ta-da! I hope this helped, guys. Thanks again.